Let's talk camera support. Today I'm going to take you on a deep dive, nuts and bolts look at how and why I use this particular fluid head tripod leg combo. It's lighter and simpler than it looks, and it's amazing for landscapes, panos, long lens, gimbal type work. I guarantee it's better than any ball head you'll ever use, and it's the best of the fluid head setups out there. Well, hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me for this Approaching the Scene and for supporting this video series with your likes, with your shares to your friends, and subscribing to the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, there's always a little spot in the bottom right corner where you can just click to subscribe, a little logo, an HH logo. And I want to thank everybody for sending in questions, whether it's through the YouTube comments here or emails to me directly or through my social media. You know, the comments and the discussion that you all have around this video series is what really drives the comments or the content that I put out. And I'll tell you that I've had a lot of comments about fluid heads. You know, a couple years ago, I did a fluid head video on why I prefer fluid heads for still photography. And I constantly get people coming in from that video, and then I've had little updates along the way to how I use the fluid head. Kirk Enterprise Solutions has worked with me to kind of perfect the mounting system with this tripod head that I like to use, the Manfrotto 500AH. And so, you know, it's gotten to the point where I'm pointing people to different videos along the way that showcase the evolution of this system. And I thought it's a good time to update it and put out, dispel some myths like, oh, this setup looks big and heavy. Everybody that comes to a workshop and picks up my tripod is blown away by how actually light the thing is. So I'm gonna show you what I use, how I use it, why. You can always go to my links. I'm gonna put a link to my gear links and this whole tripod system's explained along with some options to make it a little cheaper. And I'm gonna go through and just piece by piece tell you how this thing assembles and how it works in this video and why I use it and why I think it's so freaking great no matter what type of photography you're doing. It opens up a world of being able to move with a video camera smoothly and level. It opens up a world of gimbal type work with longer lenses to track action without losing your level. It's a breeze to get compositions and make micro adjustments in the landscape without losing your level constantly like you would with a ball head. Once you've used this for, you know, a week or two and you get used to it, you're never going to want to use a ball head again. I have so many converts that have shown up and thanked me at workshops carrying this exact setup or some derivation of it. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to jump in. We're going to talk about how to assemble this thing from scratch, and I'll talk about each component that I'm using at this point. But before I do that, I just want to dispel that myth that this thing is monstrously big and heavy. You know, it folds down to this size, and if I weigh it right here, it's weighing in at exactly 7.5 pounds. You know, it's not the ultra lightweight, tiny travel tripod that some people like. Personally, you know, I think anything that has a center column and spindly little legs that don't have any support, really, you know, whenever anybody tells you not to use the last legs of your tripod, it's probably too lightweight a tripod. And I think any tripod with a center column, you're raising up against that point of stability and getting rid of a lot of what a tripod does for you. So this is the tripod I carry everywhere. If I don't have the capability of carrying this much weight, I'd rather leave a lens or something behind. So I'm going to pop out, I'm going to disassemble this thing, and then I'm going to talk about each component and how it goes together. And we'll start with the legs, and we'll work our way up through how we attach the camera to the head. Ooh, before we take off on the use and setup of a fluid head, I want to invite you to join me at office hours this Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. It's a big free collective get-together of photographers with open Q&A, and we're going to talk about all things camera support in this particular one. I'm going to be joined by my good friends Rick LePage and David Archer, who both help lead workshops with me. This last week, we had 100 people pretty quick sign up. It's limited to 100 people. So get your registration in quick. You just go to hudsonhenry.com/office hours. There's a link in the video description. Just click on the title and it'll take you right there. And I hope to see you Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. All right, let's start off talking about the legs. These are my favorite tripod legs. These are Gitzo 3543 XLS tripod legs. They're not cheap, There are other options out there, and I have those in my links. Again, the links are in the video description, but you can always just go to hudsonhenry.com/ATS links. But if you click on the video's description, you can find those links. You'll find this tripod. You'll find other tripods. There are cheaper tripods. This is about $900. You'll never find them used because no one will let go of them once they have one. But you won't find one that's lighter and gets to be 7 feet tall. And I know I can hear people asking, well, why does it need to get to be 9 feet tall? I don't know if anybody's ever encountered a scene where there's a park bench or a seawall and there's vegetation blocking your view of the scene you want to photograph, and you just wish you could get a little bit higher. Well, you can step up on that bench, step up and use this tripod. You can bring a little step ladder in your vehicle and get up higher to get a look down on things. Or if you're on a steep hillside, you can be standing with the tripod at eye level and put that other leg out 7 feet long and drop it down so that it's on the hillside down below you without having to stoop down because your tripod won't throw a leg out down the hill. I'm sure we've all encountered that. When you get this tripod, or a number of other systematic tripods, it probably is going to come with a flat plate on top. Some, like the Robus, come with a flat plate and a bowl and everything you might need to adapt it to whatever you want. The Gitzo, for its $900, does not come with a bowl, and the Gitzo bowl is really expensive. So I tend to use a Sunway Photo bowl adapter. You take the plate off. There's a simple ratcheting mechanism here. You drop that 75mm bowl into place, and then you just torque this down with the little built-in wrench to get it nice and snugged up. And that's something that you check, at least every trip. I tend to try to check it every morning, just make sure that hasn't loosened at all. You'll notice if it starts to loosen, you'll feel a little wobble. But once it's clamped in there, it's clamped in nice and tight. You'll notice I wrap my tripod legs with bicycle tape. They have this beautiful carbon fiber weave, but it's not comfortable to hold. Plus, I like it to look a little ratty while I'm running around, so it's a little less stealable. It doesn't scream steel. So I use some gaff tape on really nice road bike bicycle grip tape. I have a whole video about how to maintain and protect your tripod, and this stuff's in there. I'll link that. If you click the video description along with my gear links, I'll put a link to that video. I like to use Rock Claw feet. That's a Really Right Stuff product. There's a link to those in my tripod accessories section. The tripod comes with these nice rubber flexible studio feet. I keep those. I don't use them very often, but if you were working in a situation with beautiful old wood floors or something, having rubber feet is a really nice thing. I also like to have these Really Right Stuff spikes, which are great for working in surf and shifting sand. So you can just spin these rock claws off, spin on these spikes. And the truth is that I almost always have either the spikes for working in tidal situations, sea, or these rock claws, which are just great in wet streams and you name it. The other thing that I like to always have on my tripod is a stone bag. These are affordable, cheap. I think it's an accessory that if you don't have, you just absolutely should. It's up near the top of my, my gear list at ATS links on that page. And they just Velcro on. It makes them stay on even better if you've got bicycle grip tape conveniently wrapping your legs, because it just kind of grips onto that gaff tape and doesn't move much. And then if you get out in a really windy situation, you can drop, a 20-pound stone on the scene, or a brick if you're in town or something, in here and weight your tripod down like it weighs a ton and doesn't move a bit in the breeze. You can also just set things that you're working with in there to store them, like a bag of filters or whatever else. It's just a handy little shelf, and it doesn't interfere with you stretching the leg out to go into vertical situations. So that's the legs that I like to use. The next thing you're going to need for a fluid head is a way to level the thing. So this is a half ball leveler. I use the Gitzo one, the Manfrotto one. It's affordable. You just drop it in here and it fits up in that bowl. The handle screws up from below, easy as this. And I much prefer this Manfrotto one to the offerings from Really Right Stuff and some others, and I'll show you why in a second. But you loosen it and it's really easy to get your head level, no matter how, if your tripod's set up anywhere close to level, you can tip, shift, and move. Now, if you are hell-bent on holding on to your older tripod with a center column, You can skip this whole section that I've talked about, and I've got links to all this stuff on my site, and you can throw on an accessory leveling adapter that just goes between the center column of your tripod. You can see I've got a short one because I don't really believe in center columns, and I only have one lightweight Benro carbon fiber tripod that's for if I really can't carry much weight. This is a Kirk Enterprise Solutions leveling adapter. It's nice because you just twist that one thing, it comes loose, it's got a nice big level on it, twist it back and it's locked, and you can mount your tripod on that. So that'll let you level the head. With a fluid head, it's really critical that you have some way to level it easily, because otherwise you're going to be working with the leg lengths, getting the whole tripod perfectly level every time you set up. You need a way to just set up close to level and bam, look at your bubble level and you're set level. All right, so before we get to attaching the head to the leveling adapter that we were just talking about, I want to talk about the fluid head itself. This is a Manfrotto 500AH with some modifications from Kirk Enterprise Solutions. So when I first did my fluid head video back when, the 500AH comes stock with not looking like this, not with this Kirk top and this little kind of cross plate here, which looks like this. It had a top plate on it that looks more solid with the traditional video style Manfrotto plate that slides back and forth in that top plate. And Jeff Kirk came up with this new modification. It's lighter weight. It integrates a really nice Kirk Enterprise Solutions clamp that you can just lift up, spin, and change orientations with a built-in Allen key. And with some coordination with me, they designed it in a way that it's centered over the tripod's axis of rotation, which makes it really, really handy for doing panoramas. And I'll talk about that after I show you how this is set up. It makes suddenly you don't need nearly as much gear to do a high quality complex panorama where you're using the no parallax point to get a perfectly registered panorama. So the way that you just literally you take off these 4 bolts, you buy the Kirk bridge adapter, which comes with this great swiveling clamp. It's a simple kind of half-turn clamp to lock your camera in. And I'll talk a bit about attaching that now to that leveling adapter that we put into the bowl of our tripod a minute ago. So if we loosen that handle all the way off the bottom of the tripod here, suddenly you're going to have 2 parts. You're going to have the handle and the ball. You can buy short handles for these too if you want to get closer to the ground. They're easily available, not very expensive. I've got that in my link too. So what you want to do is just take the half ball and thread it onto the head. And this is where a lot of people get into a little bit of trouble, and this is the reason why I like the Manfrotto half ball so much better than the Really Right Stuff one, is the fact that it has these little set screws inside it where you just twist those with an Allen key and it locks in. You don't even need to tighten this down. It goes ahead and those little set screws keep that leveling half ball adapter from twisting. You just suddenly have locked your fluid head to that leveling adapter without ever over torquing the panning clamp, the knob that stops it from panning. I think a lot of people get this system and they set it up and they torque that clamp down and try to spin the head on as tight as they can, and they wind up kind of torquing the mechanism that controls the brake on the ability to pan left and right with the head. Those little set screws in the bottom of the Manfrotto leveling adapter just make all the difference on earth. There's ease to taking it apart, ease to putting it together, and longevity of your head with that system. And then once I thread that handle back in snug, then all I have to do to level my head is just loosen that handle, tighten it up. There's a level, little bubble level inside the head that all you have to do is tip it up, look in there, level. It's that simple. All right, so now we got our fluid head essentially set up. If you want to level it, you just basically tilt it, have a look at that bubble level underneath. It's right in the middle of the head here. Level it up, boop, tighten that grip from down below, and all of a sudden you're ready to mount your camera. Now, one thing that's really important if you're going to shift into using a fluid head like this is that you get an L bracket for your camera body. The first time I order a new body, I'm always ordering an L bracket to go with it at the same time. And the reason for that is if you don't have the L bracket, it's really difficult to get vertical on a head like this. With an L bracket, it makes it just as easy as that. In fact, even when I shot with ball heads, I used L brackets forever just because you had a better balance than flipping off to the side, and it was quicker and easier to do. So L bracket's really essential for this. Now, I'm also going to advocate that instead of mounting it right on the top of the head where, if you loosened the tilt knob, it suddenly will flop. It flops slow because there's that fluid that slows it down. It's not a catastrophic flop like you'd have with a ball head, but it's still annoying. You can't just let go of your camera. I'm going to show you how the fluid head will let you get around that too. So I'm going to lock my pan. There's just two controls on this. There's a knob to lock pan and a knob to lock tilt. Once you're level, everything you do stay level, and you can just make micro adjustments left, right, up, down, and it also lets you do filmic movements if you're shooting video that stay level the whole time. So I like to flip so that my clamp handle's off to the right. You make it nice and snug. Kirk includes this neat little kind of hidden Allen wrench for doing that kind of stuff. And then I like to use something that we panorama photographers always have in our kit anyway. It's my nodal rail, my no parallax slider. And it's just essentially a rail with a clamp. Kirk's made this really clever one, the LRP3, that's adjustable. It has sort of a tiny ultra lightweight mini clamp underneath, and you can actually slide the clamp along the rail. And that's really handy for today's mirrorless cameras and really short flange distances and ultra wide lenses like this 14 to 30 on the Z7. If I was all the way back like a traditional no parallax slider, the tip of the slider would be in the frame. So this way I can work with a traditional DSLR with a longer lens and still get the range of motion that I need to get to the no parallax point. I'm not going to get in the weeds about what the no parallax point is. If you're curious about that and you're not a panoramic photographer, I have a really affordable ebook on simple panoramas that introduces the concept, and then my advanced panorama course on my website. And I'll link that stuff in the video description again. Click the title, you'll see it. Tells all about that. But here's what's great. If you get balanced, just when you're out shooting, not saying you're doing panoramas, you're not trying to get that exact calibrated nodal point. If you get balanced by just moving the camera back a little bit, suddenly everything's neutral, and you can just leave the head and it stays right where you left it because it's sort of like getting neutrally buoyant if you're a scuba diver. It's suddenly set. Now, once again, you'd probably lock it off before you pick it up and carry it, but it's a really, really clever way, and it isn't any more weight for those of us that are panoramic photographers. When you want to use a long lens and you're out doing sports action or wildlife, here's where it's really phenomenal because all of a sudden you've got gimbal-like capabilities. You're already level and balanced. You can clamp a foot that has a dovetail. I really like Kirk's custom dovetail feet. This is my 500 on my Nikon D500. The lens and camera are about the same weight as the tripod and head right here. A lot of people look at the specs for the 500 AH and they think it can't hold a heavy rig stable. That's not necessarily true. The rating is for smooth filmic motions for filmmakers. These heads are really rated for filmmakers. So for a filmmaker that wants to do sort of a flying pan move really, really smoothly, that's what the weight limits are about. Locking off a big heavy rig is not a big deal at all. I've put very heavy, old, big manual focus prime lenses with doublers and big, pro-sized bodies on this, and it's held it just fine. And you can get nice and balanced. But here's the great part, once again, you get this thing balanced so that it's neutral, and you can track motion and stay level the entire time and use it like a gimbal. So it's great for everything. And that same orientation that you're using with the nodal adapter works great with the long lens. So for me, this is the tripod that does it all. If I go and get set up on a scene, it's very, very stable. I really like using it with a dedicated bowl set of legs. If you can foot the bill, getting a set of legs with a 75mm bowl to drop one of these adapters into. That way, everything's centered right over the strong point of your tripod. And then, you get level and you get into the position that you want to create your image in, and you think, oh, I wish I had a little more foreground. Well, I can just tilt a little bit. I don't lose level. I don't lose left and right. Oh, I want to move just a little bit to the left. Oh, I'd rather flip horizontal. Everything is nice, rock solid, stable. And again, this head weighs exactly what a Really Right Stuff BH55 ball head weighs. I spent time with some filmmakers on Denali. I did a video about it a couple of weeks ago for an ATS, and exclusively used their Sackler their Sackler fluid head on the mountain for 30 days, and I came back and couldn't stomach using a ball head ever again. I've been on workshops with a bunch of repeat clients who, some of them have been resistant for a little while, then they watch me work with this, they pick it up, feel how light it is, and the next workshop they show up with one and they say, thank you, I'll never go back. I have a lot of people toting these things around. There's a great little story up at Delicate Arch last year at our Moab workshop. I stayed back with a couple people who were huffing it up the hill to get up there, and we were all having fun and joking, and I sent the faster crew up ahead with Rick LePage, and this guy comes down the mountain and he goes, Hudson Henry, and I was like, what? He goes, I watch your videos all the time. I thought I'd be the only one up here with the Manfrotto 500 fluid head, and I see this team of like 6 people all carrying him, and I said, do you guys follow Hudson Henry? And they said, no, he's following us, which was my buddy Rick. That story just cracked me up. So, I mean, I think that once you've tried this, you just won't go back. Again, links to everything I've talked about and some options to save a little bit of money by maybe having a shorter tripod or using your own set of legs with an adapter. It's really critical that you have that adapter. You set up one of these tripods on top of just a flat top tripod, you're going to be really frustrated trying to get it level with the legs all the time. I think it's really great to have a leveling adapter that has those set screws that screw up into the bottom of the head so that you don't have frustrations with it coming loose. I think the nodal slider and the Kirk bridge just make it for me, particularly as a panoramic photographer. It's just a dream come true to do panoramas with. When I want to do complex multi-row panoramas, well, hold on, I'll show you how I set it up. All right, I usually also have my little multi-row kit in my bag. I've got links to all this stuff on my ATS gear page on my website, which is linked in the YouTube description. Just click the title. It's basically these 3 pieces, and this is kind of a preview. I'll be doing another video pretty soon. It's a vertical rail with a panning clamp. I have a Really Right Stuff panning clamp, and they make the best ones. And it's a horizontal rail. So what I do is I pull off the nodal slider, I get my Allen wrench here, spin my clamp back to where it's kind of perpendicular across the top of the head. I drop the rail in here where I've got my nice bubble level on it, and I can see that I'm level. Lock it in place at my pre-measured distance. I'm not going to take the time to do that perfectly right now. I set up the vertical rail right on the end of that to where, oh, I missed it. Always be careful. Right like that. Boop. Make sure everything's nice and snug here. And then I'm going to loosen the pan on that upper panning clamp, put it so that my clamp is up there. And then all I've got to do is drop my nodal rail into that upper clamp and adjust it for whatever lens I'm using. And all of a sudden, I set up clamp into the base of my L bracket, and all of a sudden I have well, we need to get level. It's one thing, you got to get the tilt leveled out. The head is level, but the tilt is not necessarily. There we go, you look at that bubble level. This is set up a little tall for me. And now all of a sudden, the head becomes your lower panning clamp. It's all just sort of set up perfectly to pan. Your lens is right over the center of rotation, and you can tilt. Actually, you loosen this clamp right here. What am I doing? You can tilt by just loosening this little knob right in the back right here. You got this little knob, and you can tilt your camera down Let's say you're up on top of a big escarpment trying to do a panorama of the place below, and pan level so that you don't have that kind of rainbow-like thing. Or you can pan up, or you can do multi-row. You can do a row where you're panned up with the sky, click, 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 drop it to neutral, click, 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 drop it to low, shoot a grid that way, click, 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 click. So that's my multi-row setup. And if you wonder about how sturdy is this whole thing, as long as I make sure each one of these little knobs is locked down, I have no problem picking up the whole thing and changing tripod positions. So that's how sturdy and stable the whole thing is. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that answers some questions. I'm going to refer a lot of people that have questions about setting up the fluid head to this particular video. And this week in office hours, we're going to do talking about tripod support. It's going to be all about tripod support. You can always sign up. They're free Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. It's like a big group discussion on Zoom. We had over 100 people sign up this last week. My membership in Zoom limits it to a 100-person meeting for Zoom Pro. So get in there, get registered. We'll send you a link for the meeting, and I hope to see you on Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. We'll talk more about tripod support and just do general Q&A. I'm going to have both my good buddy David Archer and Rick LePage with me, who both lead workshops with me. So, all right, everybody. I hope everybody out there is staying safe and finding ways to enjoy family, friends, landscaping, whatever it is during this time where we're all a little less active than normal. From my family to yours, I hope you're all safe and sound, and we'll see you next week.